Every Sunday, Esther stood proud outside the church, carefully watching who showed up to worship. She eventually strutted into church, hat sharp, Bible clutched tight against her chest, heels clicking with purpose down the aisle. Her perfume lingered like a strong commandment, and her stare could silence a room. To strangers, she looked like the picture of devotion, faithful, disciplined, and set apart. But to those who knew her, she was something else. They didn't see holiness, they saw wickedness. Esther sat in the same front pew every week. Her spot was sacred, but not in the way she believed. The pews directly behind her stayed empty week after week. No matter how crowded the church grew, that space beside and behind, Esther remained untouched. Like seats marked by an invisible curse, children were warned not to sit too close to her, and some mothers would even remind their little ones not to even look at her. While others lifted their hands in praise, Esther lifted her lips in poison because someone always seemed to piss her off during service. Her tongue was her weapon, and Sunday was primarily her battleground. When she spotted a woman with an unkept wig, she blurted out, "She calls that a wig? Looks like it came straight from the dollar store." And when the choir hit a note she didn't like, she leaned in to mutter, "Woo child, he sounds flat as a pancake, just straight tone death. Good grief, Lord help him." She knew every flaw, everyone's secret, everyone's sin, except her own, and though she wore her cross proudly, her words crucified everyone around her. But the sharpness didn't stop at the church doors. At home, her Bible rested closed on the coffee table while her mouth opened wide with curses. Her 8 children, each one carrying a different scar from her words, learned early that love was conditional and peace was a privilege. If they didn't obey her commands, she'd wish them misery. "May your marriage crumble like dust," she'd say. "May you never have a dollar that stays in your pocket," she'd yell. And she meant every word her daughters stopped calling. Her sons gradually stopped visiting because they learned that distance was their only peace. The laughter that once filled her house turned into echoes. Even the pictures on her walls seemed to turn their faces away. One by one, they drifted away. The last one left after she told him his children would grow up just like him. Lazy and ungrateful, he never came back. And Esther sat in her silence, convinced she was the victim. Her neighbors feared her too. They'd cross the street when she stepped outside, clutching her robe like armor, eyes full of judgment. When a dog barked too loud, she cursed it. Days later, it disappeared. Coincidence? Maybe. But after that, no one took chances. The neighborhood learned to move quietly past her house, where the curtains were always drawn, and her silhouette lingered like a storm cloud. From that same window, Esther watched as life carried on without her. Children played in the yard next door, women laughed over fences, and men waved from their porches. She watched it all, the joy, the connection, the love, and hated it. No one waved. No one knocked. Her phone stayed silent, and her mailbox stayed empty. Still, she'd sit there every day thinking about how the world had outgrown her cruelty. She thought she was punishing them with her absence, but in truth, they had already forgotten her. Then came one Sunday that felt different. As she entered the sanctuary, something shifted in the air. Whispers followed her like shadows. When she reached her usual pew, she noticed it, not just the empty space beside her, but the new gap around her. The rows near her were empty too. People had quietly moved to the other side of the aisle, leaving her completely alone. For the first time in her life, Esther had no one to talk to and no one listening, even if she did. Her tongue trembled, but no words came. She sat there, clutching her Bible tighter, eyes fixed on the preacher, pretending not to care. But deep inside, something hollow began to echo where her pride used to live. It didn't take long after that for sickness to come. Her once powerful voice turned weak, her steps slowed, and the mirror became her enemy. She called her children. No one answered. She waited for a knock, a plate of food, or just someone stopping by to check on her. But the house stayed quiet. Days turned into weeks, weeks into silence. The woman who once had something to say about everyone now had no one left to say anything to. She laid in bed staring at her closed Bible on the nightstand, the same way she had lived, so close to God's word, but never once letting it touch her heart. When she passed, there was no wailing, no church gathering, no casseroles, no flowers crowding her door, just the sound of the wind brushing against her curtains. At her funeral, the pews were nearly empty. Her children came, but not from love, only from duty. They sat far apart, silent, staring at the casket that held a woman who had never learned gentleness. When the pastor asked if anyone wanted to share kind words, the room stayed still. The silence felt heavier than grief. It felt like justice. And as the service ended, sunbeams cut through the stained glass, falling across the empty pews she once filled with judgment. No one sat there. No one ever would again. Because Esther hadn't just cursed everyone else away, she cursed herself. Esther's words pushed everyone away, and in the end, she stood alone. Her life teaches one truth. The way you speak becomes the world you live in. So choose gentleness while you still can.